Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Pull Back the Curtain, episode 2, week 2. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Rob Bolden. I am the artistic administrator for Pittsburgh Opera, and we are so thrilled that you are joining us today once again for Pittsburgh Opera's most recent engagement with the internet universe, Facebook Live, hopefully YouTube. Hopefully you're tuning in. We are so happy to have you here today after last week's wonderful inaugural episode where we had a chance to visit with two of our wonderful our former resident artists, Brian Vu and Ashley Fabian. We have a truly packed show today. We've got some amazing guests. We're going to take a look at some wonderful clips and revisit some of Pittsburgh Opera's recent productions. However, before I do that, I want to thank today's corporate sponsorship, the DTE Foundation. Without the DTE Foundation, in addition to being today's corporate sponsor for episode 2 of Pull Back the Curtain, they also help to underwrite our Brown Bag concert series. They've also become underwriters as part of the Maecenas Gala and our Diamond Horseshoe Ball. We are so thrilled to have the DTE Foundation as part of our Pittsburgh family, enabling us and helping us to do some of the great work that we so cherish, that we so want to bring to the world, to our constituents, to our community. So on behalf of Pittsburgh Opera, thank you so much to the DTE Foundation for being with us today. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, in that vein, if you would like to join the Pittsburgh Opera family, we would love to have you as part of that. If you are already a subscriber, thank you. If you are a subscriber and a donor, thank you twice. However, throughout this program today, please feel free to take a look at the comment section where we have enabled and tried to set up a very easy process to get you into our family, so to speak. If you have an opportunity, please considering throwing a few dollars our way. If you enjoy this program, if you enjoy anything that Pittsburgh Opera has to offer, your money is certainly well spent, and we humbly appreciate it as we continue to roll out these programs and look to the future and the future programs that we cannot wait to bring to you. That being said, like I said, we have an incredibly packed show today. We are so privileged to be able to engage with artists during this time. As I said last week, but this week we've kind of blown it up even further. We're going to get a chance to speak to some of the creators. We are going to get a chance to visit with some more artists. So we're really looking forward to sharing today with you. Those of you who are opera aficionados know that as long as opera has been produced, from Monteverdi to Mozart to what I consider this sort of golden age of composing, opera has the ability to comment, the ability to shine a light on society, the ability to lift up voices that might not have the opportunity to be heard in another avenue, another way. And that's what we're dedicating today's episode to, those societal, those community connections through opera. And we're going to take a look at that through 3 pieces that Pittsburgh Opera has had the privilege to produce, to bring to our constituents and our audiences, and really to share with the world and to perpetuate, and in some cases, premiere these pieces. So before we go any further, we're going to kick things off with a clip from one of our first pieces that we had the opportunity to present a few years ago. This is from our 2016 production of As One, and this stars Brian Vu, who we had a lovely chance to speak with last week, as well as another former resident artist, Taylor Raven. Let me bring this into the stream and take a look.
I grab a book with the magic word and hide it in another book and slip to the darkest corner of Lewis and Clark. And I read,
That was To Know from Pittsburgh Opera's 2016 production of As One. Looked like we had a few technical glitches at the beginning, a little echo in there, but we are sort of all beholden to the gods of the internet these days. But I think it evened out toward the end, and we had an opportunity. I think that end of that duet is what I find to be so special, that end, that message at the end. At this point, I'd like to welcome Laura Kaminsky, the composer of this piece. Laura, thank you so much for being with me today.
It's a pleasure to be back at Pittsburgh Opera Club.
Thank you. It's great to have you here. It's great to see you. Before we jump in, just a quick check-in. How are you? How have you been? What have you been doing to keep busy and artistically sharp during these times?
Oh, I'm busy writing opera. I have a commission for Dayton Opera with a new collaborator, librettist Andrea Fellows-Feinberg, and our opera is called Finding Right. It's sort of two stories that intersect, but it's inspired by the unknown sister of Orville and Wilbur Wright.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Fun. I have a soft spot in my heart for Dayton Opera, having performed there myself back in the day.
Great.
Indeed. Well, Laura, I'd like to explore this piece and just in a high level, can you tell us in your own words what, for those people who may not have seen this piece or aren't familiar with it, just give us a quick background about what it encompasses.
So As One was a long-held dream of mine to write an opera about a transgender person finding their true self. And it took a long time for me to figure this all out. My collaborators were, and have remained very close collaborators. We've done 3 projects together, and I've done a 4th with one of them. Mark Campbell, librettist, and Kimberly Reed, co-librettist and film projectionist she did the film design for this piece. I wanted to tell a very powerful, intimate story of somebody finding their true self through the lens of a transgender individual in dialogue with themselves as they go on their journey of self-actualization. So there's 2 singers playing one character. They're on stage the entire time. The entire orchestra consists of a string quartet, which is on stage and sings as well. And the maestro has a speaking role, so it breaks a lot of conventions of typical opera. And it's a very intimate piece.
It absolutely is. When we presented it here in our 200-seat, what we call our second stage venue, 200 seats, and I think that for us to be able to bring it into a venue like that makes it that much more special, and really you can connect with these characters, which I think is such an important part of a piece such as this. That's the point of it from my estimation, and to be able to connect, and then for those performers to be able to share and give it away and find their connection with the audience.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that's been such a beautiful experience, and the Pittsburgh Opera production was just so special, and it was early on in As One's career. So we were still discovering the piece. There have been close to 40 productions at this point, and I believe there's about 46 Hannah. The character is named Hannah. Hannah before is sung by the baritone, and Hannah after by a mezzo. And I think there's about 46 singers now who have played Hannah. And they've become like a family. They all know each other. They're all in touch with each other. They share notes on different productions and different directors' takes on the piece. It's just been an extraordinary experience. So I was so grateful when Pittsburgh Opera gave it a home.
We were thrilled to bring it to Pittsburgh. I think it's one of those pieces when we endeavored into the second stage, it was exactly what we were looking for, something that provided that connection, yet something that was extremely topical, something that was needing to be talked about, needing to be spread, and little does that better than art, I think. And which leads me to my next question, art and the operatic art form. From the beginning, is this the way you saw it? Did you see it in any other way, a song cycle perhaps and maybe why do you think it translates so well into that operatic art form?
That's a big question. I am a fairly older composer at this point, but this was my first foray into opera. And I
Wow.
barely ever written any songs before that. I was really an abstract instrumental composer, mostly of chamber music, because I loved the intimacy. And yet, through my abstract instrumental composition, I often address social and political issues. Um, this was just something that came over me. I felt this need to really delve into what does it mean to find one's truth. And in the doing of that, what you learn about yourself and what you learn about your relationship to everyone else in your world and their relationship to you, and what you have to give up and sacrifice in order to have that truth and that freedom of self-actualization, and what you gain along the way. And the metaphor of a transgender person in dialogue with themselves seemed like a beautiful and operatic story that needed to be told. And I was lucky to have found Kim. I saw her film, which was a documentary she made about her own trans story, going back to her high school 20-year reunion and reuniting with her friends and her family. And I knew I needed to work with her, so I contacted her. And we began this conversation and knew immediately that we wanted the film to become the world in which our character's story played out. And we discarded any thought of lots of characters and lots of subplots and focused on just this inner dialogue. And that was partially motivated by the fact that I wanted to write this piece for two specific singers with whom I'd had a previous experience presenting them, not writing for them, Sasha Cook and her husband, Kelly Markgraf.
Right.
And I knew I wanted to do something with them, and that's what led to this conceit, really, of a person in dialogue with himself, shared by the two characters. And the minute I knew that it could only have a string quartet, because that's an intimate, and it's one voice from the lowest note of the cello to the highest harmonic on a violin. It's one voice that becomes a world for this story to be played out. And I had just finished a project about climate change with the Fry Street Quartet that involved multimedia. So I knew that would be a good fit. And Kim and I began to think about how to develop the piece, and we needed a librettist. So I found Mark Campbell. We sat on an Opera America panel together, and I really liked the way he thought about things. And I approached him about it, and he said, "Yeah, I'd love to do this." I said, "Well, if you and Kim click, we may have a team here." And it was pretty clear that Kim did not want this to be her autobiography, but that it came from a lot of her truth. Mm-hmm. But the test of every episode along Hannah's journey, as Kim was talking to Mark and me, we go, that resonates for me too. I remember when I struggled with this issue. And they then sent me away because they were going to write it together. But there had to be this recognition that these were universal human experiences through this particular narrative. And that's why I think this libretto is just so phenomenal, because it's specific and universal at the same time.
It really is. It's a very, very special piece. And, as I've said, we were thrilled to bring it to Pittsburgh. And if people out there can see it, I highly encourage them to do so. The question that I'd like to leave with is, you talk about the personal aspect of composing it and bringing it to the fore, and certainly not autobiographical in any way for any of the creators. But tell me a little bit about the reception. And throughout these past six or so years since its premiere, as well as the over 40 productions, how have people reacted? Have you heard from people in ways that struck a chord that I can imagine as such? But being the creator, I'd love to hear a little bit about the public reaction and how it's been received and for somebody.
It's been so phenomenally rewarding and moving for me and Kim and Mark to be at these productions. And at the end, to hear audience members say, "Thank you for telling my story." Then we have the audience member who comes and say, "I was a little bit skeptical about this. I don't like modern opera, and I didn't think I was going to respond to this story at all. And you made me think differently." And then there's the other audience, which is the transgender audience member, who's coming because of the subject matter, but who's never come to an opera before, and their skepticism is about the music and the conceit of opera. And they say, "Thank you for telling my story, but I think I'm going to come back and see another opera now." So, the learning goes both ways, and the generosity of spirit of our audience members has been phenomenal. I mean, when a 12-year-old kid gets up and says, "Thank you, I never thought I'd see me," that means a lot. Or when a 55-year-old Vietnam vet transgender woman stands up and says, "You've made me cry and I'm so happy." We're so gratified by that. I mean, the power of art to reach people.
Well, and I think that to my initial point, I think that's what's such a privilege and a pleasure in this age of composing. The topics are endless, the talent is endless, and we are able to connect with people on almost anything that moves the creators to bring to the stage, and then anyone who has the courage to then produce it and bring to their audience. So, Laura, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure just getting to see you, connect with you, say hello. And again, it was such a pleasure to bring this piece to Pittsburgh. And I know it's had an amazing life since. I think we were about the 7th to produce it. And now it's over 40 productions, which is just phenomenal. So thank you to Mark Campbell and Kimberly Reed as well, who are the librettists. It was a beautiful piece, and I wish you and I wish it a very a long artistic life moving forward. And I know it's on its way, obviously.
Thank you and Pittsburgh Opera for all your good work.
It's our pleasure. It's really our pleasure. It's our mission. So thank you so much, Laura. Have a great afternoon. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Such a pleasure to catch up with Laura Kaminsky, the composer from As One. A real pleasure to bring that piece to Pittsburgh as well a few years ago. As I said at the beginning of this broadcast, we are thrilled to have our sponsor, DTE, the DTE Foundation, with us today, and we couldn't be happier to have them as part of the Pittsburgh Opera family. And for all of you who feel like you want to pitch in a little bit, please don't hesitate to do so. You really make what we do possible, and we can't thank you enough. Head over to the comments section. You can check out a link to a Donate Now link, and we are thrilled to have you with us today. But like I said, we're going to keep pressing onward. We've got some great other guests coming up. So the next piece I wanted to take a look at is based on a really powerful book called The Long Walk by an explosive ordnance disposal officer who fought in the Iraq War years ago. His name is Brian Kastner. He wrote this book about his experience, and through the artistic process, Jeremy Howard Beck and Stephanie Fleischman were able to bring this piece to the operatic world and share it and bring this story to light in a way that hadn't been seen before. So before we bring in my next guests, I am going to bring in this clip, and let me share with you this clip from The Long Walk.
Samuel Paul Kastner. I'm gonna count to 10. 1, 2. Oh my God, for applause again.
Ooh, intense, intense. Let's bring you guys in, unmute you. Um, Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the show. Leah Heater, Ben Taylor, thank you so much for being here. What a pleasure to share that clip with everybody, and what an intense clip. I should also mention the other members of that cast in that scene were former resident artist Eric Faring, as well as guest artists Martin McCary and Thomas Chavone. And the three young lads who joined us as part of the Kastner family in this production were Simon Nigam, Harrison Salvi, and River Beckus. Truly an intense journey in that piece. And it's a real thrill to be able to talk to the both of you. I want to throw out this broad question because, you know, as actors, as performers, you inhabit characters all the time. But what is different about something like this, where you are inhabiting an actual person, real characters who went through real trauma, real experiences? Ben, I'm going to start with you. And played the sort of title character, the principal who, you know, based on the book. But tell me a little bit about that journey inhabiting a character like that.
Well, for at least for me, the start of it is trying to find a place of honesty, and there's no way that I can replicate his diagnosis, but I can do research and try to find similarities and of that of his diagnosis to present it in an authentic way. So trying to find that and doing research, and I have a lot of military family members, so and friends who suffer from PTSD and other issues from the Iraq War. So just kind of talking to them and finding kind of the through line, so I can try to present this in a authentic way.
Absolutely. Leah, what about you when you're on the sort of, you're in the same boat, but playing his wife and this character's wife? What is that like as you're inhabiting this character in this role, in this mental state? Did we lose Leah? Maybe we lost, unfortunately. We may have lost Leah. Let's see if we can mute. Leah, are you there? No? Oh, that's a bummer. We are all at the mercy of the technology gods, unfortunately. Let me bring her, let me do that. So for now, Ben, why don't we continue our conversation?
Yeah.
And hopefully, Leah, you can jump back into the stream. We'd still love to hear from you, obviously, but we are at the mercy of technology, as we all are. But, oh, wait, let's see. Hi. There we are. Can you hear me now, Leah?
Yes, I can.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. So we're going to continue on. This is just the way any of these shows are going to go. Leah, we were talking about the responsibility of these characters and having to step into the shoes of these characters. As actors, you portray people all the time in different mediums, different time periods, but what makes this different? What is the responsibility like in this instance to be able to bring this character to life?
Well, I met Jesse Kastner on opening night right before I went on stage. But here's the thing. She is so wonderful, and they're just such warm, kind people. And what she said to me really helped me. She said, it's yours now. The story is yours to tell. It has nothing, I mean, of course it's my story, but once you go out there, it's yours. So for me, everything was so... You work within like parameters, right? When you've been given the libretto and the set and the music, which was really difficult, actually. Yeah. So you're stuck in there. So there's not so much room to be wondering, oh, how should I interpret her as a person? Because she's already painted for you completely. So I really just let all of that inform me. she took all of the pressure off of me opening night,
That's
as far as
amazing.
that thought was going.
That's amazing
Yeah.
to be given that kind of freedom. But I would also, you would think that if you are going to put that story together, if you're going to allow your story to be told to an extent, you have that or need that freedom. Ben, what was it like when you met Brian? Because he obviously was here for a bit of time.
Yeah.
We all had the opportunity to meet and engage with him. So what was that like for you to meet him after you've been reading about him and inhabiting his shoes, so to speak?
Well, I get starstruck very easily. So the first time we met him, I just kind of just stared at him blankly. I was like, oh my God, it's him, it's him, it's him, it's him. And then we did a radio interview or a TV interview, and we just kind of chatted about news websites that we like and music that we like. And he was just so cool and so upfront. He kind of said the same thing of, you know, this is your story. Do whatever you want. It's not me anymore. I don't remember it. So, you know, once a year he reads the book and he like kind of goes back and he's like, oh yeah, that happened. That happened. He put it all in the book, and now it's not. You know, his mind is free from it. So he visits it every year, and so meeting him was just it was so cool. It was like finding a friend that you haven't seen in years, and you finally reconnected. He's just an amazing person.
He really was. He was incredibly generous, incredibly warm. I remember listening to the audiobook, my own anecdote, and I listened to the audiobook. And when I met him, it was like I was meeting a lifelong friend. It was very, very, very interesting. Tell me a little bit about then experiencing the book, getting to meet them, in comparison to singing this as an opera. You know, the world of how did that translate for you? And how did that translate to the experience that you had bringing this story to our audiences?
Yeah, I guess I'll go first. I guess for me, it's when you bring in the music, and the music was so intense. Just hearing that clip, it just gave me goosebumps, and I had like a little panic of, oh, am I coming in right? Is this right? Is this right? Where's the halftone? I don't know.
I picked that clip specifically for effect. It was one of the more intense moments of the show, and I thought it really enlightened it. But
listen to that, and we so making sure that the music is right, and Glenn Lewis was just the best person for this job. I mean,
Pittsburgh Opera's head of music,
yes,
who also conducted.
He's the man for bringing all of this together, and so when we worked on it, it just felt like we were comfortable. When we got on the stage, you know, there were things where we couldn't hear anything because you know, the emotion got so intense or something happened, but we were so well prepared that it didn't matter. It just felt like we were just living, if that makes sense. I don't know. It just felt right.
Absolutely.
On stage.
Yeah, I will say too. So Leah, I'm curious with you, similar question. You know, arias are this kind of stoppage in time, if you will. And you know, how did the sound world that Jeremy Howard Beck was able to create, and some of your poignant moments, your arias, how did that, or did it lift those words off the page in a way that brought them to life in a different way than when you first met, first read, had first instincts about this piece?
Jessie was always trying to keep things together. So all of her music was very expansive and calming, but like so full of emotion and love and nurturing, and trying to just calm him down in these moments where he was really having a hard time staying grounded and maybe spinning out. So it's such a juxtaposition to what he's doing. So for me, that really lined up with Jessie as a person, having met her, because she is very chill and very calming, but the emotional intensity was always, always, always there. underneath everything that I was singing. So, given the exception of the bedroom scene when Brian has the nightmare, there's a bit of franticness there. But when she finds him at the staircase, that was her just being like, you know what? I'm just gonna lay it all out very calmly and matter-of-factly, but all the underpinning with the orchestration was so fraught with emotion and kind of desperation in a way. So there was like always like a couple different layers. Like you could tell that she was at her wit's end and desperate, but she was always keeping it clamped down for the sake of the family. So I don't know. It was really powerful.
It's true. I remember Jesse and Brian's music. There was a big juxtaposition between, and certainly that was on purpose. And as you so articulately highlighted, the sort of her thought process versus what was going through Brian's head and the emotions that he was having to process. It was really, I think it was a really great piece, really hard, I know, for a lot of people. But I think, again, that's what I think is so special about these pieces, is that it does give an opportunity, it gives a lens to artistically look into some of these topics, some of these matters, in this case, PTSD. And not only that, but the effects it had on a family. And I think that's what's so important about a piece like this. So your performances were wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing them with us a few years ago. Before I leave you, though, just want to highlight a couple of things that you guys are both doing in this incredibly, incredibly difficult time. But Ben, can I start with you? Can you tell us a little bit about your project that you did with Santa Fe Opera?
Yeah, so for Santa Fe Opera, they did these and are still doing these videos for each opening night of the operas. What would have been opening night this summer. So I did a little project singing Papageno, because I would have made my main stage debut this summer singing Papageno with in the Magic Flute. So I did my first directing and videography by making a music video for Papageno's aria, and it was a lot of fun. And since we're not able to sing as much in a traditionally idyllic way, I've been getting more into photography, and so I've been posting that on Instagram. And the Santa Fe. Go to Santa Fe's website. They have all the music videos, a lot of cool things. They have one for every show, so it's great.
Yeah, well, thank you. And
Thank
Leah,
you.
what about you? I've seen lots of posts on Facebook. You've been keeping busy, to say the very least.
I have. Well, so all of my gigs, I was doing my first Omneris at Virginia when everything got canceled, and I was going to Tech Week, and I was like, oh, what's happening? I really have not sung a note of opera. I sang one classical piece, a Bach piece for like a singer studio class. Then I was supposed to go back and do Maddalena at Virginia. I was supposed to have gigs this summer. All of that obviously has been canceled. So for me, I'm still using the free version of Acapella app, but it's just because I like having the 1 minute challenge. It only gives you 1 minute free space. So all of these songs that have great vocal harmonies, like Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, or like an Imogen Heap song, I've been trying to figure them all out by ear.
Nice.
To just kind of have something to really, really focus on, to keep me sane, but also to give little gifts to people throughout this whole ordeal, just like a little sprinkling of something. And I've been doing like grunge 90s covers on piano and stuff, like Alanis Morissette.
Nice. Well, keep at it. Keep the faith. It's so good to see you both. I know this is a difficult time, but we're so happy. I'm so happy that you could join me today and explore this piece and explore these themes. I really appreciate you guys taking the time, and I hope it's not too long before we get to catch up once again in person and make some music together.
Yeah. So, thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you, and be well, and we'll talk to you both soon.
Yeah, see you soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Ben Taylor, Leah Heater, such a pleasure to talk to both of them. It was great. to share that piece, The Long Walk, from our production a few years ago. We were thrilled to be able to bring that and offer that and share Brian Kastner's experience with all of you. But it is because of people like all of you. This is just my regular plug, but we do really truly thank you for everything that you are able to give the Pittsburgh Opera. It makes pieces like The Long Walk as one. It makes all of that possible. So thank you so much for being a part of the Pittsburgh Opera family. If you are so inclined, please feel free to visit pittsburghopera.org/give-now. And my lovely colleagues in development have set up a pretty easy format to get you in to throw a few dollars our way, and it would be a privilege to continue and continue the work that we're doing and have you part of the Pittsburgh Opera family. So that brings us to our sort of final chapter of today. You can see over my shoulder there the placard for The Summer King. In 2017, Pittsburgh Opera was thrilled to be able to present its first world premiere opera, The Summer King, based on the fantastic Negro League catcher Josh Gibson. It's an amazing story that once we started to learn about this story, we knew we at Pittsburgh Opera had to tell it in Pittsburgh. So lucky for you, this coming Monday, August 3rd, we are going to be doing a rebroadcast at 7 p.m. on WQED FM radio. So if you have the opportunity to tune in, please do. We are so thrilled to be able to bring this piece back to our family, back to our Pittsburgh Opera constituents, our audience, and bring it to all of you as well. So, however, before I bring in my last guests, I want to bring in one final clip. This is from The Summer King. This is starring Alfred Walker and Jacqueline Eccles in a moment from The Summer King, Beautiful Afternoon. Please enjoy. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. A wonderful excerpt from The Summer King. We are so happy to have with us today, with us on the bottom of your screen there next to me, Dan Sonnenberg, the composer of The Summer King, and above him, privileged to bring and have with us the great-grandson of Josh Gibson, Sean Gibson. Thank you both so, so much for being with me today. And welcome to Pull Back the Curtain.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you, Rob.
Excellent. It looks like technology, third time's a charm in this case. We no echo and everybody's in the frame. So
we even coordinated our outfits for you.
Indeed. I love it. Look at that. I love that. Thank you guys so much for being here. It's such a pleasure to talk with you both, revisit this piece. As I talked about just a few minutes ago, we are going to be able to bring this piece back for everybody to hear again on Monday evening on WQED FM. We couldn't be more excited about that. Dan, I'd like to start with you because you had been working on this piece. You had been composing this piece by the time we kind of started our partnership with you. But I gotta, tell me why, tell me how. what sparked you about this piece, this character, that you felt this is an opera?
I'm a big baseball fan, and I've been a big fan of baseball history. So from the time I was a kid, I was always interested in the story of Negro League baseball. It just spoke to me. The characters, the injustice, and I think initially what drew me to Josh Gibson was Josh as a tragic figure. The fact that he died so soon before the integration of baseball. He died in January 1947. And, Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in April of that same year. So I think heading in, and Josh struggled with his sanity late in life. He really, there were aspects of his character that in a very kind of cliched way made him seem like an opera character. I think when I worked on the opera, in writing it, I began to discover that there's another aspect to his story, which is a kind of heroic aspect that isn't really told that often. So you think of Jackie Robinson as this heroic figure who broke the color barrier, and he was. But if there wasn't what I came to realize is if it wasn't for somebody like Josh Gibson, who played the game at this extraordinary level and had to deal with so much that people can't even conceive of, so much indignity, and just playing multiple games a day, not being allowed to stay in hotels, and to hit and play the game the way he did, I began to realize that Josh was sort of emblematic of the entire accomplishment of the Negro Leagues, what they did. I mean, they really are true American heroes. And so it became, my goal in writing the opera was to sort of capture, on the one hand, it's a very sad story about Josh, but there's also really a heroic element that really, there's kind of like a positive piece to the story, I hope.
I think so. I think it was he and so many of his contemporaries and his teammates even that really paved the way for then, breaking that color barrier, which sadly Josh was unable to experience and benefit from. So it really is. It's a tragic. He's a tragic hero in so many ways. Sean, I don't even know where to begin. You and I have certainly had conversations about this, but what was your first instinct? Maybe not upon hearing that there was an opera that was being written about your great-grandfather, but upon seeing this piece come to life and watching it unfold and watching it come to life for you. Was that special? Tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, it was very special. For number one, who would have thought that an African-American man who played in the Negro Leagues in the 1930s and 40s and never had a chance to play Major League Baseball, and then it's an opera based off his life. So that's way beyond our dreams. So when Dan contacted us way back, I think in like 2007, I've never even been to an opera before. I don't think anybody in my family has been to an opera. So it was very unique for someone to call us and talk about Josh Gibson's story in an opera. We've heard people contact us as far as a documentary or a movie or play, but not an opera. So for us, it was very exciting. Once we actually had the piece done and saw the piece and saw the performers, me not being in the opera world, I give a lot of respect to opera singers and performers because all the conditioning they do just with their voices to be able to sing every day. Well, not every day, but when they do get up there to sing. So it was exciting. And not only that though, but for the Pittsburgh Opera and this being their first ever world premiere was also exciting for us. So it's like, Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in baseball. We broke the color barrier in the Pittsburgh Opera. So that's what we look at it.
It was really special for us. And I know that when Christopher Hahn discovered this as a possible project, it was kind of a no-brainer that this was going to be our first world premiere on so many levels. It just touched on so many things for Pittsburgh Opera and the community here. It's you bring up an interesting point, Sean, about in your wildest dreams not seeing an opera per se about Josh, but to bring back the point from earlier in the show, that's the beauty of this this day and age, you just don't know who's going to write what or on what topic. And that's kind of the beauty of this episode, these three pieces that we've had a chance to explore, and the way that they connect on so many different levels with so many different communities. I think that's what's so amazing during this time. Dan, I'd like to ask you a little bit about the music, because talk about a cornucopia of music and styles and genres that you put into this score. We are fortunate, this is a shout out to the Pittsburgh Opera Orchestra, but we are fortunate to have that band in our pit and Maestro Anthony Walker on the podium, because you absolutely gave them a challenge, but they rose up. But tell me a little bit about that piece, the composing, your style, and how you came to all of that.
Yeah, well, I knew it was sort of an intimidating project in a way, because I knew that there was a lot of music in the story, right? So there was the Crawford Grill, which is sort of a very important location, which was kind of the watering hole for all the players, and also frequented by jazz legends. So there's always jazz music happening there. Then the players went to Mexico, so there was Mexican music, and then it's a period piece. So for me, the challenge was sort of, I didn't want it to just become sort of like a pastiche of all these different styles. I wanted to somehow incorporate this into sort of some kind of overarching musical style. And at some point I had to just sort of let go and hope that would take care of itself. You know what I mean? So I just figured, I did a crash course. I listened to a lot of mariachi music for a couple of weeks, and then I just put it away. And I was like, okay, I think I transcribed some of it. But yeah, that was one of the really fun things about writing this opera is, I somehow, in one of the early workshops we did, the audience was given a questionnaire, and one of the responses that somebody said was, it's an interesting story, but the music is very modernist. It doesn't really seem to reflect the story. And I really took that to heart. So one of my earliest drafts didn't quite have that range. And I just thought, well, I'm telling a story here that's of a specific time and place and has this specific music. So there has to be a way for that to speak in the score. But it was definitely a challenge to sort of get on top of these different styles and bring them into the fold, for sure.
Yeah, well, they string together well. They string together lovely. I mean, it was definitely, I think we all saw the score and we were like, okay, let's do this. Let's do this.
Yeah, and you guys did a great job. Anthony was incredible.
We're lucky to have that orchestra in our pit. Absolutely. And Maestro Walker on the podium and our exceptional music staff to prep them all. But so I think, we were ready for that challenge for sure. Sean, I'd love to hear about the community impact of a piece like this. We saw an opportunity, we saw a piece like this as being able to tell this story. And it's such a unique to Pittsburgh story, but the universality of it is unquestionable. And I would love to hear from you, how it was received in the community in general, and even with your family specifically, what that reaction was like. What were some of the comments you got upon people either hearing that we were doing a piece on Josh Gibson, or then on the heels of seeing it? How did that impact Pittsburgh and our artistic community, or the community at large, really?
Yeah, well, I could say this: the community was very excited about it. Everybody was happy and raved great reviews about it. I would say this: I think what really helped us was that I know in the beginning we went out into the community, did these workshops, kind of educate people on the opera and the African American community, because a lot of African Americans don't come to the opera. So I think having those 4 workshops in the Hill District, we had one in the Hill District, we had one in Homestead, we had one in the North Side. So having those workshops where we can kind of educate people, because I think sometimes you think of the opera, you think of Italian language, you think of you have to be in a tuxedo, you think the tickets are expensive. And we wanted to make sure that our people, our African American community, was able to come to the opera and be comfortable and us having those workshops really helped out a lot. So, but overall, the one thing I would say was, which is kind of funny, everybody kept calling it a play, and I would correct them. It's not a play; it's an opera. But everybody loved it. Every time we had a Q&A session after some of the sessions, and people would ask questions about it and had great feedback. And the same question that everybody wanted to know was like, why Josh? And I'm like, well, why not Josh? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like Dan, he's a great story. There's other great athletes that have operas. He's part of that category now. So as far as our family, like I said, for us, it was just more of a joy to be able to see Josh in a different light. I mean, we see Josh and maybe, like I said, and maybe small movie scenes, documentaries, school plays, but to see him on a different stage as an opera, for our family, like I said, in my lifetime, we never would have thought that Josh would become an opera. But thanks to Dan, he loved Josh's story. He put it on paper. He put the music behind it, and we made it work. And I'm so grateful to Christopher and his staff for us to have it right here in Pittsburgh. I mean, I felt as though if this was going to be an opera based off of Josh Gibson, it would have to be right here in Pittsburgh first. So thank you to you guys, and kudos.
It was a pleasure. I mean, I think it was a perfect match. We saw it, and it was a perfect match, and we were so thrilled to be able to make this premiere and bring it to Pittsburgh and to our audiences. And I think, again, that's what's so special about opera in general, is that this is something that is new and unique, and we are able to bring that and interpolate it into our programming, into the curation of what we do year after year, and this becomes part of that canon now for Pittsburgh Opera. Dan, I want to go back to you just real quickly, and I'm wondering if there's anything when you were writing it you hoped that people might walk away with, a theory, an idea, something that they was there anything you were hoping that people might take away from this experience?
Yeah, I mean, over the course of writing it, one thing that I learned that was kind of shocking to me is a lot of people don't know who Josh Gibson is. And, especially in the opera world, and if you ask a bunch of opera fans who's Babe Ruth, most of them can tell you. So,
right.
I had some higher aspirations for what I wanted people to take away, but at the very least, to understand that not only was there a great player named Josh Gibson who had this phenomenal career, but he also was not, he didn't function in isolation, so that there was, I really wanted in some way the piece to be kind of a celebration of the accomplishments of the Negro League, of the life and the culture of the Negro League. Because I think actually in when baseball integrated, some of that was lost, like obviously the Negro Leagues they hung on for another 10 years, but they fell apart and disappeared. And that's as it should be, I suppose. But it really was something very special. So if people saw it and came away with that kind of understanding, wow, there's more, this is a more complicated and richer story than just a question of injustice. Because if we focus exclusively on the terrible injustice of segregation, and of course we need to focus on that, but if we miss the fact that in the face of segregation and oppression, this entire community was able to create something that was vibrant and that was as high in quality as what the white players were doing. That to me is probably the number one takeaway I would hope for fans to have.
Yeah, it was a beautiful piece, a beautiful story. Speaking of legacy, Sean, you oversee and run a foundation now in your great-grandfather's name. And so I'd love to hear a little bit about what that foundation does, some of the initiatives that it offers the community and the public. I think it's important for, having that goal of trying to do something, in the vein of with an opera, what you want to do, but now this foundation that perpetuates his name and the good work that it does. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, you mentioned, we have the Josh Gibson Foundation right here in Pittsburgh. We serve over 300 kids in our programs and after-school programs, and between after-school programs, our feed program, all of our baseball activities. But as you mentioned, though, the goal behind the Josh Gibson Foundation, my grandfather, Josh Gibson Jr., actually started the foundation. And the main purpose was to make sure that we kept his father's name alive, and not only his father's name alive, but other great Negro League baseball players throughout the city of Pittsburgh, as well as the Negro Leagues. And so we came with the Josh Gibson Foundation. Then I took over the foundation. I've been involved with it for the past 18 years. And just, I will say this, the opera really opened our eyes up for our kids. We brought about 22 kids to the opera who've never been to the opera. And I can tell you right now, it was very eye-opening for those kids to see the opera. Not only that, though, but to even get dressed up, we went to dinner first and they got dressed up, and they were very excited. I mean, some of them couldn't understand it, but it was reading the words up top, which is fine. But that's what the foundation does. We want to open up those doors, those experiences for our kids to be able to branch off. And who knows, one of them may become an opera singer one day or work for the opera one day. So all the programs that we do here in the city, if people want to know more about our foundation, they can just go to joshgibson.org. The one thing I will say is that this is the 100th anniversary of the Negro Leagues. They were founded in 1920. Due to the pandemic, a lot of things have slowed down because of that. We had several events planned for the year to raise money for the foundation, but due to COVID, we had to postpone all of our events until 2021. So, but yeah, this is a great opera, and with everything going on right now with the racism and social injustice, this would be a great opera to bring back to any city to educate people on the legacy of Josh Gibson and Negro Leagues, because the same things that my grandfather went through back in 1920 and 1930, we're talking 100 years, and we're still, African Americans are still fighting for the same social justice and same civil rights as we did back then. So this is a great opera that any city would love to have, and talk about that.
Yeah, it's so true. It is, this is a very timely moment to be able to share this opera again. And while we can't put it on our stage physically, we are really thrilled that we are able to bring it to the radio and have an audio rebroadcast on Monday, just to be able to share that story, share that experience, because I think that's really what it's all about. It's that education, it's that awareness, and moving forward rather than back. And I think that, so much of the work that the Josh Gibson Foundation does is so exceptional in all of those avenues. And a piece like this, we are certainly at Pittsburgh Opera certainly just happy to have been part of that conversation along the way, and to offer that to the public. And if it fosters other conversations, thrilled that we are able to be a part of that as well. Because again, as I said early on, the arts are a way to reflect, they are a way to comment, and a piece like this, I think, really does that well on many, many fronts. So, gentlemen, I can't thank you enough for taking a few minutes out of your day to be with me today. It was a pleasure seeing you both at the very least, but really great to have you with me and hear your comments about this piece and the foundation, things that are happening in our society today. And I wish you both well as we move on forward.
Same to you, Rob, and love to everybody at Pittsburgh Opera. It's great to see you again, and you, Sean.
Well. Yeah, be well, gentlemen.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, please. It was my pleasure to see you both and have you on the show. So thank you. Have a great evening. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Thank you. Take care.
See you soon.
Such a pleasure to be able to check in with so many great people, artists, creators, somebody like Sean, who is moving things forward, continuing the conversation. Really, just a real pleasure, and that's what the arts are able to do. We are thrilled to be a part of that conversation all along the way, and bring these pieces to you, bring these pieces to light. And again, it is because of people like you. It's because of the support you offer. And regardless of what time we're in right now, as we all struggle with this pandemic and closures and COVID, we will come back. We will be here. We will have offerings in the coming season and beyond. And it is a real pleasure to be able to engage with all of you throughout this process. So thank you so much for joining me for episode 2. Couple of glitches along the way, but we survived. But thank you for being with me today. We look forward to seeing you next week, Thursday at 4 o'clock. Please tune in And if you have a moment, shoot us a comment if you like, and we look forward to seeing you. Take care.